Now to more on President Obama's final State of the Union.
We're going to take an in-depth look at the speech and the latest developments overnight. Let's go to national correspondent Mark Meredith. He's live in Washington, D.C. with more. Mark.
Yeah, good morning, guys. We've been following a lot of developments, just like you were hearing about what's been happening in Iran. I know you guys have been tracking the latest developments here in Washington. That certainly was the concern, whether or not that was going to, for lack of a better word, hijack the agenda the president was going to be delivering last night. The president deciding not to mention what was happening in Iran, instead sticking to the script, even though there were plenty of members of Congress that were demanding to know what was going on. We heard from John Kerry right before the speech, the Secretary of State Kerry. He said things were going well, that it was going to be resolved soon. He had full faith, and that's exactly what we've been talking about all morning, that those 10 Americans being returned back to U.S. officials. But it wasn't just about the military. There were so many different topics that were covered during the president's address last night. He's been well known to give good speeches. Last night, it seemed like he was able to go back to where it all began, kind of the campaign style, that fired up, ready to fight and get people motivated. There were plenty of moments to choose from, but these were two that really stuck out to us this morning from the speech last night.
When you come after Americans, we go after you. And it may take time, but we have long memories, and our reach has no limits. For the loved ones we've all lost, for the families that we can still save, let's make America the country that cures cancer once and for all.
And that was a moment that's certainly getting a lot of applause this morning on both sides of the aisle, because you can imagine how many millions of Americans are dealing with cancer each and every day. If you were watching the address last night, if you just maybe had it on mute, you may have still noticed something a little out of the ordinary. It was the new Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, now sitting where John Boehner sat for so many years and Nancy Pelosi before him. And so for Speaker Ryan, it was an effort of what we call a poker face. He didn't want to give away too much of his expressions while the cameras were fixed on him. That's a long time to have to stare at the president's head, but Speaker Ryan was able to play the part very well. We also heard from fellow Republican Nikki Haley. She's the governor of South Carolina, delivering the rebuttal last night, certainly stressing that there are items that both the White House, Congress, Democrats and Republicans work together on, but that both sides have different ideas on how to go forward from there. Katie Lex.
And Mark, part of the president's address last night was a wish list for his goals in his final year. Most experts, of course, don't expect to see much change from Congress, but later today, the president's actually going to take his message past them.
Exactly, because most odds of the 535 people in that speech last night that were there on the floor, they realized what was going to happen, and they likely already made up their minds. So the president knows if he's going to do this and do this right, he has to get out to the American people. So he'll be leaving out to Omaha, Nebraska in a little more than 3 hours from now. He'll be speaking at a community college later today. And then the idea, again, to really try to convince Americans that if they want to see change, they're running out of time, because we're going to be shifting right now to where the candidates stand, where the nominees will be standing, and that's going to shift focus away from the White House. And I think the White House knows this. They got to take advantage of what they can of the spotlight while it's still there. But we'll be following. There's plenty to talk about for weeks to come, that's for sure.
All right, Mark Meredith live in our D.C. bureau. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you.